Have you ever wondered if somewhere, someone already knows the date when the American economy will finally fall apart? Not a mild recession, not another temporary slowdown, but a full-scale collapse. A moment when decades of pressure erupt all at once. For years, economists, the same experts who usually sound the alarm too late, have been pointing to a window of time. And what they're saying now is alarming. But before revealing that date, we must first look around and see the cracks already forming beneath our feet. Because to understand what's coming, you have to feel how close we already are to the edge. Layoffs are stacking up. Inflation burns through paychecks like a spreading fire. Families work harder, yet bring home less. Major industries brace for impact, knowing this isn't just another economic cold, it's a fever threatening the entire system.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics is pleased to report the strongest job growth in decades.
In May and June of 2025, the Bureau of Labor Statistics proudly announced over 331,000 new jobs. It sounded like proof of a booming recovery. But weeks later, a quiet revision exposed the truth. Many of those jobs never existed. Arizona State University confirmed what many suspected. Job growth had slowed to less than 0.5% compared to over 5% in 2021. That's not growth, that's stagnation. Then came July, only 73,000 new jobs, a devastating miss. And soon, nearly 1 million earlier new jobs were erased from the record. People who believed the economy was thriving suddenly realized the opportunities they'd been promised were illusions. For many, 2025 was the year reality hit home. Layoffs stopped being headlines. They became personal. A friend, a neighbor, someone down the street.
Did you see this? It's worse than they thought.
I know, the whole market is down.
The fear spread faster than the job losses themselves. And when fear spreads, trust collapses. Trust, that invisible force backing the US dollar, begins to vanish. The dollar isn't backed by gold anymore. It's backed by belief that America will repay its debts, that the economy is strong, that tomorrow will look like today. But that belief is fading. Why? Because America's financial habits are reckless. In 2024, the U.S. government collected almost $5 trillion in taxes, but spent nearly $7 trillion. The result? A $1.8 trillion hole filled with borrowed money. Year after year, the same cycle repeats, spending more, borrowing more, and pretending it will somehow balance out. Imagine a family earning $50,000 a year but spending $70,000. They might survive for a while until the interest on their debt crushes them.
Your policies are responsible for this astronomical debt.
That is absolutely incorrect.
That's America now. Nearly $1 trillion a year goes only to interest payments, money that builds nothing, heals nothing, creates nothing. It simply disappears into the pockets of creditors. And those creditors, the banks, investors, and foreign governments, are beginning to see the cracks. For the first time, even the world's safest borrower, the United States, looks risky. They're demanding higher interest, and as those rates rise, so does the debt.
Look at the price of this.
Feeding a spiral with no escape unless spending is drastically cut. But nobody in power wants to make that cut. Politicians fear losing votes. Voters fear losing benefits. Everyone kicks the can a little further down the road, hoping the collapse happens on someone else's watch. The can keeps rolling, but the road is running out. Every new dollar printed to delay the pain only deepens the eventual collapse. Behind closed doors, officials assure the public that everything is under control. Yet inside those same rooms, panic is starting to take hold. They see the charts, the debt curves that rise not gradually, but exponentially.
I want snacks.
I know, honey, but these prices are just crazy.
Across the nation, ordinary Americans are starting to sense what's coming, not from the news, but from their wallets. Groceries cost twice what they did just a few years ago. Gas prices rise and fall like a roller coaster, but the endpoint always seems higher. Rent absorbs paychecks before the month even begins. And while the media speaks of resilience, the average family quietly realizes they're running out of ways to stay afloat. Corporate giants are no longer hiding their fear. Amazon freezes hiring. Banks reduce lending. Construction projects are postponed. Every move signals one truth: confidence is gone. Meanwhile, the stock market, that glowing symbol of American optimism, teeters between illusion and reality. It climbs on government stimulus, then crashes when the illusion fades. The Federal Reserve, once the steady hand guiding the system, is now trapped. If it raises rates, the economy shatters. If it lowers them, inflation explodes. Either path leads to chaos. And while the debate rages in Washington, the people at the bottom feel the consequences first. Savings accounts shrink. Credit card debt surges past $1.3 trillion, an all-time high. Student loans return after brief relief, hammering millions who thought they'd escaped. Every number, every report, every headline, it all tells the same story. The system is straining. But the most dangerous cracks are the ones invisible to the eye. Beneath the surface, U.S. banks quietly prepare for impact. Commercial real estate, once a fortress of value, is collapsing under vacant offices and unpaid rents. Regional banks, loaded with those bad loans, are trembling. Regulators whisper reassurances, but even they know the truth. One more shock could trigger another 2008. And this time, there may be no bailout big enough. Foreign investors are already backing away. China, once the largest holder of U.S. debt, has been quietly selling off treasury bonds. Other nations follow, diversifying into gold, energy, and their own currencies. The dollar, once the world's unchallenged king, now faces rivals. Even America's allies are exploring trade deals that bypass it entirely. For decades, the United States held power not just through its military, but through the dollar's dominance. Every barrel of oil sold, every major trade settled, was tied to it. But if that changes, if the dollar loses its grip, the consequences will be historic. This isn't just about finance, it's about control. Because money is power, and for the first time in generations, that power is slipping away. The rest of the world sees what's coming and is quietly preparing for an era where America no longer sets the rules. Yet even now, the illusion continues at home. Politicians speak of progress, media outlets promise recovery, and investors cling to hope. But behind the curtain, the numbers tell another story, one of decline, denial, and impending reckoning. And as history shows, every empire believes it's invincible, right until the moment it's not. The wind has shifted, subtly at first, then all at once. Across the globe, the balance of power begins to tilt. The same countries that once depended on America's strength now question it. Trade partners are forming new alliances. BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, move to create an alternative system, one that challenges the dollar's supremacy directly. For the first time in decades, the world starts whispering a possibility once unthinkable: a post-American order. Inside the U.S., those whispers grow into warning bells. The cost of living is no longer a temporary inconvenience, it's a permanent reality. Homelessness spreads beyond city centers, creeping into suburbs once thought untouchable. The middle class, long the backbone of the nation, finds itself squeezed between rising costs and stagnant wages. Across the heartland, small towns are hollowing out. Factories sit silent, their windows broken, their machinery rusting away. What was once the industrial engine of America now feels like the ghost of a dream, a reminder of how quickly prosperity can fade when systems decay from within. But the cracks are not just economic, they're moral. People no longer trust institutions, no longer believe in the leaders they elect. Congress argues while the country burns. The media trades truth for spectacle. The education system, once a symbol of opportunity, struggles to teach hope in a world defined by uncertainty. Technology, once humanity's greatest achievement, now divides more than it connects. Algorithms feed outrage. Screens become the new battlegrounds. The average American is more informed than ever, and yet more confused, more angry, more lost. And then, the next shock comes. It starts in the markets, as it always does. A major bank announces losses far worse than expected. Another follows. Panic spreads faster than any virus ever could. Stock prices plummet, trading halts, and within hours, trillions vanish into thin air. The headlines echo with familiar words: contagion, crisis, recession. But this time it feels different. This time it feels final. The government scrambles to react. Emergency meetings behind closed doors, press conferences filled with empty promises. But the tools they once used to stabilize the system no longer work. The debts are too large, the trust too fragile. The global machine they built is collapsing under its own weight. And as the financial walls crumble, social unrest follows. Protests ignite in major cities, not from ideology, but from despair. The young demand opportunity, the old demand justice. Police lines form, sirens echo, and the fragile illusion of order begins to dissolve. Yet in the chaos, something deeper is revealed. America's crisis is not just financial, it's existential. It's about what the country stands for and whether those values can survive when the empire that carried them begins to fall. For centuries, every great power has reached this moment, the intersection between pride and reality, between what it was and what it has become. Rome, Britain, and now, perhaps, America. But history also shows that in every collapse lies a choice. Some civilizations rebuild, stronger, wiser, reborn from the ashes. Others fade into the pages of forgotten time. And now, standing at the edge of that same precipice, the United States faces the question every empire must answer. Will it rise again or finally fall?